but his theology is like music. It's a symphony. It's got these themes that interweave together, and he puts a lot of hope in the young. He knows that that's the age of zeal. He sees a small church, a vibrant church, and I think that's a call for young people. Hey, take him seriously.
All right, cool. Dom, nice to finally meet you, man.
Good to meet you.
Yeah, dude. On the Discord server, just like, oh, who's this guy? He doesn't have a PFP. I don't know who. And I go on his YouTube channel, like, oh, it's that guy. All right, yeah, cool.
Thanks
man.
for having this conversation.
Yeah, man. So we're here right now at the Catholic Creators Conference, hosted by Kyle Whittington at the St. Paul Center in Steubenville, Ohio.
Yeah.
Steubenville, yeah.
Dude, can I say this conference has been just a blast.
Right.
Like I've been having so much fun. In fact, it's even a little overwhelming. Just like too much fun.
Yeah, it's been a little stressful. I'm like, I mean, I don't remember being off the East Coast because I've been live in Massachusetts, been down to Virginia, New York, Florida, still East Coast, pretty far. Still East Coast. Yeah. So where are you from?
So I live in North Carolina, near the beach actually.
Oh, sweet.
It's really nice over there.
Yeah.
And I live in I'm renting from a good friend, and I got my little setup, a table in my library, and I just do my YouTube videos and yeah.
Oh, sick. So you run the YouTube channel, the Logos Project?
The Logos Project, yep.
Okay.
Yeah, it started a few years ago, maybe 3 years ago, I think. I started it with a Protestant friend.
Okay.
And we were good friends, and we like to talk about scripture and stuff like that. And eventually he became Catholic.
Oh, let's go.
Yeah, he was stubborn. I didn't see it coming. I thought he was just always.
And you were already Catholic at that point, right?
I've always been Catholic.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, and we started audio, and then it eventually transitioned to YouTube, and we did a few videos. Then he got married, and then it kind of became my own gig.
Oh, so, sweet. Yeah. So you do YouTube videos, just explaining what's going on with papal documents, or kind of just logic in the church? And
so the main focus is the theology of Pope Benedict XVI.
Okay.
But I do talk about theology in general, and so sometimes there's some church politics, but that gets clicks. But I don't like doing those videos. But so I actually grew up in the Society of St. Pius X, so I kind of felt like I had a responsibility to share a little bit more about the church's understanding of that. And Pope Benedict helped me in my process of understanding the council. So there's a bit of like that kind of talk, but it's mostly about his theology and the documents of the council and understanding their meaning, and just Catholic theology in general. But he's like my guide,
So when you do your videos about him and when you write about him, how do you get your topics for what you want to talk about or what you want to write about?
My question is, I can't help but have topics. How do I get topics out of my head?
Oh, really? There's so much meat to bite into.
I sometimes have a hard time sleeping. There's too much going on because he really just opens up this world for you, and it's overwhelming, but it's so beautiful. I know it sounds strange that theology, like this, you think it's a mental thing, right? You're thinking about things. That would be beautiful. Usually beautiful things are associated with like art, like paintings or music.
Yeah.
But his theology is like music. It's a symphony. It's got these themes that interweave together, and sometimes it interferes with my sleeping. Yeah. So I'm as you can tell, I'm super excited about his thought, but yeah.
Yeah, man, it's like having that one or many ideas that you can just like do and bring out to the table. That's like one of the things I do I'm a visual artist.
Yeah.
So like I draw and I also do music and stuff. Like, so if I have an idea, like this podcast was just an idea. So I do it and I'll get really into it. I'm like, what can I do with this? What can I do with that? Yeah. So I kind of get that like restlessness
with people. Yeah. No,
so
exactly.
That's awesome.
No, and that's the thing, because you see, he was mostly a fundamental theologian.
Okay.
So he did fundamental theology, and fundamental theology is principles, like thought principles of theology. So it's not anything in particular. He didn't specialize in the Trinity or in a certain part of the church's history. He specialized in the principles of Catholic thinking. And that's why he actually covers everything. And so the reason why it's hard to sometimes go to sleep is because anything you look at with those principles in mind kind of reveals itself to you in a certain way that shows you how it's connected to everything else in the faith, right? So when he talks about the Trinity, I'm thinking about the Incarnation, I'm thinking about the Blessed Virgin Mary, I'm thinking about the episcopacy. And it's like, how are those related, right? He shows you how they're all related. And so it's just hard to, that's why it's so stimulating, but I get it, man. We us here at the conference, we all have a podcast or a YouTube channel because we learn things and we want to share. We want to say, hey, you guys need to check this out. This is cool, so that's why I feel like it's just a bunch of like-minded people. They got the same kind of desire to share. But
that's awesome. Yeah, I'm glad to be here.
Me too. Yeah.
So you were touching upon how Benedict has just wide variety of topics that all can be like connected with certain things. So my podcast is directly dealt with the youth in the Catholic Church. We share youth stories, or if we have someone who's not a youth anymore, unfortunately, sorry, man.
Beard gives it away.
Yeah, if you shave, maybe.
And the receding hairline, I can't fix that.
No, just put a hat on. I'll give you mine. So I have a question. So is there something that Saint oh my gosh.
Well,
hopefully, man. Hopefully one day. Pope Benedict has said about the youth in the church, or advice or theology or something about that.
Yeah, well, the first thing I would say is that he is an academic theologian, so he may not be approachable immediately, right? If you want to read him as a youth. That being said, he's not a difficult theologian. So one thing I like, because we have a youth group at my parish as well, and they know I keep talking about this German guy who was Pope, right? And I'm like, if you really do want to read about him, a good place to start is this little book called, what's the name? Gospel Catechism Catechesis. It's this little book. It's a great place to start, and it's after the publication of the Catechism of the Catholic Church. So if anyone's watching and you're new to this, like that would be a good place to start with his writings. But he does in his pontificate, he repeated to young people what his predecessor told them, right? Which is St. John Paul II. He would say, in the footstep of his predecessor, he would say to young people, don't be afraid, right? And he has this line, I don't remember verbatim what it is, but he says that, life isn't meant to be cushy. It isn't meant to be comfortable. It's like it has to be a challenge. And, you're meant for greatness, not for comfort. So he challenges young people to not be afraid and to not be comfortable, right?
Yeah. Because one of the big things that like the youth in the church can be is just like so afraid of what other youth are thinking about them, and like following the social norm and stuff like that. Like, So
because there's the pressure of the culture, right? Which is no longer just non-Christian, but now becoming anti-Christian. And so he actually thought that the church would become small, and he saw a lot of hope in young people. And he said Catholics who take their faith seriously, who want reverence, and who want the beauty of the tradition, right, and the communion of the church all wrapped in one bow. He saw that as the future of the church, and I think we're seeing it. So many people are losing affiliation. There's so many Catholics are secular in the way they live, even though they might be nominally Catholic. And he puts a lot of hope in the young. He knows that that's the age of zeal. So he sees a small church, a vibrant church, and I think that's a call for young people. Hey, take him seriously.
I think this was that just reminds me of, I think it was a G.K. Chesterton quote, but he was talking about how the Catholic youth nowadays are more vehement and more into their faith. I mean, this was a while ago, a long time ago, but then the Marxist of his youth. And that kind of really just shows that the Catholic faith, if someone is very, into their faith and very adamant about it, it's going to be more powerful than someone who is like a political ideologue.
Absolutely. Marxism was one of Benedict's great foes. He had a chip on his shoulder about Marxism. He's one of the his theology is one of the greatest responses to Karl Marx. And but you're right, and there's something about Marxism that generates a kind of fanatical zeal that can lead to horrors. And his point is zeal for God is not violent. In fact, it looks like the martyrdom of Christ. It's actually destroying violence with love, and the zeal of Christian love, is I mean the whole idea of the sacrifice is this idea of the whole burnt offering. Right? Zeal is associated with fire usually, right? And so the Christian zeal is this radical self-emptying gift, of oneself. That's not what Marxism does. Marxism wants to create this utopia, this classless society through revolution. It's very much so political. For him, it's like, no, like the message of the gospel is not political. It's sacrificial, it's liturgical. And so if the young could, and they are, I think, take the liturgy seriously and but let that like spill out into their lives. So if you're young and you're watching this, right, like serve mass, like learn about the liturgy, what it is, what it means, and then like apply the logic of the Eucharist in your everyday life during the week, and let that zeal consume you, right? Like that quote from the New Testament, and well, also from the book of Joshua, right? And for I and my family, I think that's the one, right? We'll be consumed by the zeal of the Lord. I don't know, but there's Phineas, and although Phineas was pretty violent, but the point that Paul is making is that the zeal of God, I mean, if you look at Paul's life, it consumed him. You read his letters, he's just on fire, but it wasn't political activism. It was self-sacrifice.
Yeah. It's a continuation of what Christ told us. This is my body, which has been given up for you. Instead of like the Marxists, this is your body, this is your life, which is going to be given up for me, and I guess the welfare of other people.
Yeah. No, it's all the sacrifice for this future humanity that never comes, right? But Ratzinger tells us, like, no, like the humanity that needs our love is the one right now, not some future humanity that we think we're going to bring about through our own means. Like, God saves us. We don't save ourselves. Yeah. And so the young people, I would tell them, like, the communion of the Eucharist, the communion of the church, right, in a profoundly liturgical way of living, that's the future of the Catholic Church. Young people, liturgy, communion, all that. Yeah.
How are you doing on time, Mike?
You guys are 13:40.
Oh, sweet. So my friend Michael here, Michael Flynn, he is a big fan of Ratzinger. So Michael, if you want to come over here, maybe you guys can discuss something. Don't pause it. Please don't pause it. You're gonna mess everything up for me. Still learning.
No, you're good.
All right. So we talked a bit about Ratzinger before, but for me, he's been a recent treat. And I did like my again, I just been my Audible just filled with Ratzinger and Scott Hahn. I have them right next to each other. Yeah. But Ratzinger, it's a healthy combo. Yeah. And his writings, I think, are just so influential. And earlier, you guys are talking about, how he might like how his thoughts on the youth, And I think what's really notable to point out, especially his relation with church history, is like he was Saint Pope John Paul II's like right hand man. And what was JP2 if not like a Pope of the youth?
Absolutely.
And like because during his pontificate, I think wherever like JP2 was, Ratzinger was like somewhere next.
A friend of mine calls them the dream team. They really were the dream team. I mean, John Paul II was just a prophet. I mean, globe trotting, spreading the love of God, the love of Christ, and telling young people not to be afraid. We could do with some of that zeal some more nowadays, but Ratzinger was there, like the right hand man, just defending the faith and just serving the church, right? And John Paul trusted him because he knew he was a trustworthy kind of guy. And Ratzinger trusted the Pope, and then himself became Pope, right? But no, they were really the dream team. And John Paul's more approachable, I think, for young people. Ratzinger is much more bookish, But there's some young people out there who are thirsty. They want to know more about the faith. They're interested in intellectual things. And I would say then Ratzinger's your guy, Pope Ratzinger, Pope Benedict, right? So, but if you're not bookish, John Paul's this firebrand skiing Polish dude, right? Like, I really think these were two great saints, and we don't realize what we've received. It's going to take time to realize, wait a minute, we just had two amazing popes.
Back to back.
Yeah, back to back. Yeah.
They're like the new Peter and Paul, that's how I heard.
That's a wonderful way to put it. Yeah, exactly.
Because they breathed such necessary life into the church. And of course, not just as popes, because they both, I believe, entered the church pretty young, as in terms of the clergy,
and became priests when they were young.
They've both just been so heavily affecting the church.
Oh yeah.
I remember in my own conversion reading the story of JP2. It was like a book on great figureheads in history. And he was one of them. I was like, who's I've never heard of this guy. But he has this very warm, welcoming face. And then over time, I kept hearing this name Ratzinger. It's like, oh, he's the Pope that just passed, Pope Benedict. And then I discover his writings and Introduction to Christianity. It's like,
oh, that's a heavy one.
That was
not an introduction.
No, it's not. But he has like he said, he quenched a thirst I didn't know I had. The way he tackled I think just the humanities in terms of how you describe him, he's an academic, but at the same time, I think his writings they're very
he's a theologian, but he's also a pastor, right? And his theology isn't just this kind of academic stuff up in the ivory tower. It's really an expression of his prayer, right? His theology and his prayer are inseparable. And also his, he talks a lot about his Christology, his understanding of Jesus Christ is this, he calls it the pro-existence of Jesus. It's a fancy word that just means that Jesus, his very being, is this radical giving of himself to others. And Ratzinger was a lot like that. He, in his prayer, drew his energy from God. And then in his theology, he gave himself to the church. And all of his theology is him responding to certain situations in the church, but from a place of prayer, right? And so that's why he's so readable. He's so pastoral and doctrinally brilliant. In other words, in his theology, you see his holiness. Does that make sense?
No, that makes perfect sense.
And that's what's so appealing. And it's also beautiful. His theology is beautiful. And so, reading him is not just intellectually stimulating, but it's spiritually stimulating and actually draws you closer to God. Isn't that what saints do, right? Saints are meant to actually, through their example and through your friendship with them, draw you to the source of all friendship, and which is God himself. And that's why I really appreciate. I mean, he's answered so many of the questions that I've had that other people haven't answered, but also he's drawn me closer to Jesus Christ, especially his Jesus of Nazareth series. Yeah, that's why I read him so much.
That's definitely one thing I've noticed is as I'm reading him, I'm expecting again a more academic study. It's going to be like going to math class kind of. And instead, I find myself going to church more frequently after reading him. Discerning more. There is a heart there, and he's so full of that. He's just a heart, I guess, for Christ. I don't know if there's any, that's weird, but he I did mention this briefly before too. He's in my opinion, one of the greatest theologians we ever had as a pope. Who's
him, Gregory, and Leo. I think are the greatest pope theologians that we've had. Yeah,
definitely. Yeah, it's and even just for anyone to put him up there, I think. And you're seem like a scholar on Benedict.
I read him a lot, but I don't know if I'd say I'm a scholar. Yeah, but
it's just he's just so I don't know. It's just we were definitely graced by him, and it's.
Yeah, I don't think we realize yet how much. It's going to take some time. I don't want to say he's I don't know, like the greatest theologians there's ever had.
Of course.
But there's some, the thing about theology is that it's meant to always be contemporary. Like theology isn't what people thought back then. It's supposed to be our thinking of the faith now, right? And so that's why it's important to have a solid guide that's contemporary, and that's what he is. And the church is going through, and culture and humanity right now, civilization is going through a transition, a crisis of meaning, some people call it, right? And so you need someone who knows what that is and who's living in it to be a sure guide and tell you how he's tackled the issues. And that's what he is. You know, Saint Bonaventure is a wonderful theologian. He Pope Benedict studied him a lot and wrote his second dissertation on him. But Saint Bonaventure can't necessarily help me as much with the problems in the church today or in the world, right?
Yeah.
But he can, because he's channeling the tradition, but he's actualizing it right now. I would recommend people read his Jesus of Nazareth series. It's one of those things where it's an iceberg. Like, it's very accessible. It's not difficult to read. There might be some parts that are a little challenging, but not only is it super accessible, but there's a whole iceberg underneath of things he's referencing. So, but anyway, I'm on a ramble, but he's worth reading.
I know something along this line was asked before, but like when it comes to like the church doctors in general, which honestly I think Ratzinger definitely has his name.
Yeah,
up there.
he'll be a doctor. I'm not. There's no doubt in my mind.
What do you think young people can get from reading more about the church father, not the church fathers, but just the church doctors, like and just in general?
I would say to adults, don't underestimate the intellectual capacities of young people. They're much smarter than we give them credit for. Sometimes, maybe it takes them a while to get used to certain terms and to understand certain things, but that's just because they've never been exposed to certain things. But I think a lot of times adults underestimate kids, their capacity to understand things and their curiosity, and that actually does a disservice to kids. So that's the first thing I would say, is don't underestimate the kids. They're hungry for something that's actually really profound and challenging. That being said, sorry, the question was, what I tell people who want to why should they read? Well, that's the reason why, is because you put it right. You said when I started reading Ratzinger, he was answering questions I didn't know I had, right? Is that what you said? Something like that? Something along those lines. Yeah. That's my point, is that, maybe you're not curious, but if you read Ratzinger, you'll become curious. Yeah. Yeah.
It is important. You open Ratzinger, you
get you're like, wait a minute, I have questions.
Do you want to ask the final question? Yeah, I'm going to ask the final question.
Okay.
All right. All right. Yeah, this guy's just really excited about Benedict. So
good.
I mean,
that's actually 100 after a lot of questions too.
Yeah.
I wanted to just give my man a treat, because I know that people can really get out more, like get more out of like a conversation about Benedict with people who kind of know what they're talking about. I kind of don't. I just ask questions here, man.
No, good. Yeah.
Yeah. So
that's what this is for.
Yeah. So thanks for coming on, man. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on. Yeah.
Of course. So where can people find you?
Yeah. So if you go on YouTube and type in the Logos Project, Logos is Logos. You'll find my YouTube channel. I will warn people, there's some church politics videos that, don't watch those. Watch the Ratzinger stuff. I'm trying to focus on Pope Benedict. Because of my history and certain controversies, I had to kind of talk about that. But the Logos Project on YouTube, click on everything that has his face on it, right? Yeah. And I have a website where everything is, you can find all my stuff, the podcast, blog posts, and that's called The Ecclesia Blog, another Greek word, ECCLESIA, Ecclesia, which means church in Greek, so theecclesiablog.com.
And that's is that listed on your profile too?
Yeah, it's on the YouTube page as well, so you can find everything there. Yeah.
Great. All right. And one final question. Since we're a faithful amphibian, we kind of always have to do something related. So we have this acronym called FROG, and it stands for Fully Rely on God.
Okay.
And so my question is to you: do you frog?
I wish I frogged more.
Yeah.
So work in progress.
Work in progress.
Yeah.
Work in progress. Let's go. All right. Thanks, man. I really
Thanks.
appreciate it.
Appreciate it.